everyone here tonight for our College Night Seminar for students who are on IEPs and 504. Thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come with us. Hopefully you'll find some valuable information. I would not be able to pull this off without my transition coordinators in other districts, so I would just like to thank Dublin, and the transition coordinators are Erin Canaday, Kristen Yearling, Kelly Marshall. From Grandview, we have Chris France. From Hilliard, we have Jeff Feathers, Kristen Welch, and Corey Poe. From Westerville, we have the transition coordinators, Missy Ewing, Sarah Painter, and Jay Smith. And my name is Jill Zingery, and I'm from Worthington. If you have questions after tonight, my advice would be to go back to your transition coordinator in your district, and they will be the person that will really be able to help give you those next steps and any advice to help those connections. Tonight's format, kind of how we're going to work. We're going to have a question and answer. We have some questions that we already kind of predetermined prior to tonight, but if you collected some index cards on the way in, and if you think of something and you didn't get an index card, and we'll be around to hand out index cards, if you have a question, please feel free to write it down. The transition coordinators that are standing up, we will be collecting them and bringing them to the moderator to read the question for our panelists. Just some housekeeping. Our bathrooms are being cleaned, which was in great timing. So if you do need to use the restrooms, go out to your left and go all the way down on the right-hand side by the drinking fountain. There's another set of men and women's restrooms. We will be having the Q&A until about 6:55, and then we'll wrap it up, and then you'll be dismissed. The colleges are set up in the Commons that you can go and visit with them afterwards. Also, I had booklets. We did run out, and I apologize, but tomorrow we are videotaping this seminar, and so tomorrow I will send the booklet and the YouTube link that you will be able to access. And I'll push it out to the transition coordinators who will push it out to the families. So don't worry, we will get that information to you. And last but not least, I would like to welcome our moderator for the evening. His name is Denton Warburton, and he is from Dublin, Scioto, and he's the school site. And so we just want to welcome him. Thank you, Denton.
All right, good evening. I just want to take a minute to just thank everyone for taking time out of your night. You all were working, students, you're at school all day, and then here you are back in the school. So thanks for taking the time to come together tonight just to learn more about accessibility services and kind of transition moving forward. So for our moderators, we're going to have a lot of questions tonight, and there's a lot of information to share. So when you respond, if you can just try and be just real concise. Sometimes you might have something where we've talked a lot about. If we feel like we've talked enough about it, we'll just go ahead and move on to the next question. Does that sound okay? All right, perfect. So I'd like to start off with is just, we're going to kind of walk down the line here. I'd just like you to just introduce yourself, your college, university, where you're located at, and then just a little bit about accessibility services, how many students you service, things like that. So if you want to start down here, and we'll start, sorry to put you right on the spot, you're just right here, right seat. So if you want to just kind of start off, that'd be great.
Hi everyone, my name is Angie Maston and I am with Wright State University. We're down in Dayton, Ohio. It took me about an hour and 10 minutes to drive up here today. And we have our Dayton campus, which is our larger campus, but we also have a lake campus out in Salina, Ohio, which houses our graphic design programs and some of the others. And we have around 950 students registered with our office.
Good evening. I am known by my students as Miss Penny. I am one of the learning specialists at Bowling Green State University in the FLY program. Our program is an academic support program for students with learning differences.
Hi, my name is Ashley Lemaster. I'm from Capital University. We're located in Columbus, Ohio. We serve around 350 students between our undergraduate, law school, and graduate programs.
Hi, my name is Chris Knight, and I'm with Defiance College. People always ask me, where the heck is Defiance College at? We're kind of up in the Northwest Ohio cornfield, right in between Toledo and Fort Wayne, if that gives you geographically an idea of where we're at. It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes from here. We're a pretty small campus. We have about 600 students on campus, and we serve about a third of those through our office.
Hello, I'm Leanne Elkins. I'm with Muskingum University. We're located in New Concord, Ohio, which is about an hour east of Columbus. We're right off of Interstate 70. And I represent our Student Accessibility Services Office, which is our ADA Accommodations Office, and also our PLUS program, which is our unique fee-for-service academic support program for students with learning differences.
Hi, I'm Special Cobb, and I'm representing Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities College to Careers program. So we have different counselors at over 17 universities and colleges within Ohio. I specifically work with the Columbus State Community College students, and we serve over 2,000 students, I would say, in Ohio, but my caseload is about over 100. So we have different counselors at different colleges.
Hello, my name's David Harold, and I work at Hocking College in disability services and academic support. We serve in my office 150 students, 1,800 enrolled with the college.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Contac. I am at Heidelberg University. I'm the coordinator of student accessibility services there. We're a small liberal arts college in Tiffin, Ohio, about an hour and a half from here. I would say I probably have about 107 students registered with my office, so pretty small.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So I think for our first question, we have a lot of families in here, some who have had students with learning differences, various disabilities from preschool forward. Some have had been more recently identified. Everyone has a different journey with that. So with that, you might be a little bit more familiar within the school setting of what disability services look like within the school. So I think it might be helpful to just hear a little bit from you all just about what's some of the differences that we can expect when we think about services for students with any sort of learning differences, disabilities from the college level versus a high school level. So if someone is brave enough to be our first volunteer, we'll start there. And if not, I might just assign. Perfect.
The benefit of being the first one. Okay, so the biggest difference between the high school and college setting is we don't modify curriculum at the college level. So if your student has heavily modified curriculum right now, you might want to really think, is my child well prepared for that transition to college? I have had several students with severe physical disabilities that would have like a reduced workload, but they're still graded like on their percentage worth. And those students, I remind them that we don't reduce the workload in college, so you might want to think about being a part-time student.
Likewise, at Bowling Green State University, what we try to provide are accommodations to make everything accessible to the student. No modified text, no lowered reading levels, no reduced workload, and that will be determined by our Office of Accessibility Services. Once they make the determinations for those things such as extended time during tests, a quiet, distracted-free area for taking a test. Maybe it might include the use of assistive technology for text-to-speech, speech-to-text. Those are the type of accommodations that we offer, and I'm sure all of you have the same, so I would like you to share with us what you have.
One of the big differences is students have to disclose their disability or register with the disability offices. They're also responsible for advocating for themselves, so students' information is protected under FERPA laws, and no information can be shared with parents unless students sign a waiver. So they're expected to be their own advocates, whether that's reaching out to our offices or communicating with professors.
And I would really just echo a lot of that. One of the big differences is that advocacy piece. We want everybody up here, all of our offices, we love to work with students. We want you to come visit us. We want to help problem solve. But one of the big differences, we're not going to be there in all of your classes to help you to navigate problems. If we don't know there's an issue, we can't help you navigate it. We want to. Come see us. We'll be happy to help you to work through whatever problem that you might have. We're all really creative people. But if you don't come seek us out, that's where we got to register. We're always not able to help you. So that's probably one of the biggest differences is, having the students being comfortable to come seek us out a little bit.
So I mentioned earlier that our campus has a fee-for-service academic support program, and that takes the place of the intervention specialist who is maybe in your classes with you now or in a room down the hall where you're getting some extra support. There are several colleges in Ohio that do have programs like this. So if you're wanting more support than the accommodations for equal access, you might check out what kinds of academic support programs are available on the different campuses.
Is there anyone else have anything else to add to that? Okay. So I think with that, let's talk a little bit. So everyone in here is most likely considering college, kind of moving forward from high school, right? And so with that, for students who might be in the application stage, who's considering, what are some things to consider when looking at colleges, universities, as far as accessibility services goes? What are some questions that they should be asking, things that they should be thinking of while they're kind of in this process with their families? I think it should.
Check.
Perfect.
So I think that many of the colleges are going to have similar accommodations. But when you speak with a college representative, you probably should ask about what support is being offered. Much of the support services that are written into the IEPs are success-oriented, and while those are not typically accommodations in college, a lot of colleges do offer support, but that support is going to differ. Maybe significantly between the colleges. So that's something you should look into.
Okay, I think next to you.
I think another thing to look into, a lot of colleges and universities have student organized groups. Like I know at our university we have a group, it's called the Disability Advocacy Division. They call themselves the DADS. And it's a group of students who put on events and do advocacy work outside of the Office of Student Accessibility Services, and I'm sure other universities have that as well. So if you're looking to get involved outside of the classroom on campuses as well, that's something that you should look into.
I would encourage you to talk with current students who are enrolled at the universities that you're visiting that have disabilities and accommodations, and ask them, how do they feel on campus? How is the support that they receive? How do professors work with them? Get a sense of what the current students are saying that are on the campus.
Okay, perfect. So with that, as we start to think about questions that we might ask, we're in the enrollment process. Some families have concerns about whether or not do colleges know that their student has a disability if they don't want to disclose it initially through the application process. So does anyone have any advice as far as kind of how that goes, any insight as to whether or not colleges know the student has a disability prior to enrollment or through the application process?
I would say for the most part, unless the parent chooses to disclose it or the child discloses it, no, they would have no way of knowing. I would encourage you, please don't go down that road though. The more you engage with the Accessibility Services Office, make them part of that admissions visit. Ask to stop in and see them. They're not going to hold that against you to get into a program. That's not been my experience. And the sooner you start to have that dialogue, the more that we can assist you and make sure that you're prepared when you kind of hit the ground running.
Okay, perfect. So students in here most likely have an IEP, 504 plan, some sort of accommodation plan. So do those automatically roll over into a support plan at the college level? So what does that look like? So a student brings the 504 plan, an IEP. What does that process look like moving forward from that point on?
So after high school, your IEP very politely dies. But we can still use that as like a reference. We can still take that documentation and take the accommodations that you had in high school and kind of figure out what you got from them, how they helped you, and what kind of accommodations you are going to be needing in your classes in college, because it's very different. I believe someone down there said we accommodate, we don't modify, and so we can use those to help us make educated decisions on what is going to be the best fit for you and your accommodations in the university setting.
Okay, all right, perfect. So let's say a support plan is created. What happens then? So are all of their professors, teaching staff, are they all like immediately notified? Is that something that a student has to disclose or share with their professor? What does that look like moving forward?
My guess is that is going to be different for each college. I know at Hocking College, I will send out letters of accommodation to the instructors. I also send that out to the student. However, I know that some colleges require the student to take that letter and distribute that on their own to the instructors. One thing that's important is that we don't expect the student to negotiate with the instructor about their accommodations. That's something that the Disability Services Office would handle.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone else have any other comments on that? Okay, perfect. Okay, a question from the audience right now. So, students come in with some sort of learning difference, disability. Is there ever a point where the college or university decides, well, we need to go ahead and evaluate and collect additional sources of data to re-identify disabilities or find whether or not there's new disabilities present? What does that look like? Is there ever a time that happens? Or if not, what would your recommendation be for students and families at that point?
So at the college level, a lot of times we are actually working towards the documentation standards of the MCAT, the GRE. So a lot of times students might graduate, they have all of their documentation from high school, but they want to be a nurse, a teacher, a doctor. And so they might need to be reevaluated during their time at the university. But the university wouldn't say, hey, you need to have like an evaluation done, because it's not the job of the universities to identify that a student has a disability. Students self-identify at the university level.
Okay, perfect. Are there any other colleges, universities that have a different view on that, or is that pretty consistent across the board for you all? Okay, perfect. Specific question for OOD scholarship. There's a new OOD scholarship, so Ms. Special Cobb, if you want to share just a little bit of information about that.
Okay, yes. So we do have the OOD Educational Support Award from the governor. So it's a new grant for the 2023-2024 school year. It's up to $14,000, so that would be $7,000 per semester that a student can be awarded if it's a need. That is only for the 23-24 school year, so we are waiting to see if that will be renewed. But with this scholarship, it's different from how OOD normally would fund tuition and books and supplies. They do not count the estimated family contribution number, so the EFC number does not apply to this fund. So if the financial aid, any accepted financial aid is applied to the tuition, and then if there is a balance after that, we will be able to assist with the balance. So before our funds would be applied, any accepted financial aid, you do not have to accept any loans, but any accepted financial aid that you have will be applied to your bill, and then if there is a balance, OOD would support that balance. If we are not supporting the tuition, we can still assist with like books and supplies, educational supplies for the students. So this funding will go towards educational expenses, tuition, any rehab technology. So that would be any like laptops that the student would need, any modified equipment that the student would need for classes. So this fund goes towards that for this school year, which is 23-24, and we're waiting to see the amount that it will be renewed for 24-25 school year.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so next question. All throughout public education, parents are heavily involved in communication with teachers, with intervention specialists, support staff at schools, things like that. Let's talk a little bit about what parental involvement looks like at the college level and how to navigate that. So who would like to take that question on?
I can speak to how that looks at Bowling Green State University. Once our students arrive, they now have legal protection as adults as to what they disclose to parents and what parents can know. So we offer what is called the FERPA agreement or the FERPA release, which is national. It's not specific to Bowling Green. In our program, such like many of the programs on campus, before we disclose if your student is attending meetings or what your student's grades look like, your student has to give signed permission for us to speak to you. The same holds true in the Office of Resident Service or Residence Life. It holds true for the bursar's office. Those are the steps that are much different than high school because we cannot freely talk about your students' personal or academic related information other than what's accessible to the public. So if you could get any information about your student from our website, like are they students, do they reside on campus, that you don't need permission for at Bowling Green State University. But anything else more specific and individualized, your student has to grant the permission, not parents. Parents don't get to write a note and say, would you please speak to my dinky darling? It doesn't work that way. Your student has to grant that permission. But I'm sure it might be different at other universities. Okay. Was that clear as mud or was it clear? Okay.
Because I know that's a really big shift for families to kind of get used to, because we're used to, you know, if you have a question, you immediately email the teacher, you email the principal. There's a lot of different support people at school to talk to. So I know for families, that's sometimes a hard transition initially because you have to go through your student first. So thanks for sharing. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about assistive technology devices. So one of the questions from families in the audience right now is, let's say a student is provided and funded with an assistive technology device through their 504 plan, IEP, and things like that, and that funding comes through the school district, but that device stays with the school district. Are there funding opportunities for assistive technology devices at the college level?
Oh, I can jump in. Okay, so yes, OOD, we can pay for assistive technology that will be needed for classes because it's assumed that it will also be needed for work. So that is what we would consider rehab technology. So if it's a assistive technology device that's used here and the college does not have that support or accessibility technology, then we would be able to provide that student with that device. So we can pay for that. And then if it is a device that the college supports, but it's like rented or it's just used for the school, then we can discuss if that will be needed for employment and then be able to provide a permanent device for the student to take home. So everything is individualized based on the need of that student. So yes, we would be able to help assist with paying for that device.
Any others want to weigh in on that? Okay. Oh, no, you go ahead.
Our role really is to kind of link up with services like OOD, BDR. Our office actually has those conversations fairly early on, and we try to encourage students when we identify those needs to help them walk them through the process of opening a case up. So we kind of provide that resource referral.
And then if your student needs personal care attendants, help with bathing, dressing, toileting, eating, things like that, That can sometimes come through Medicaid funding, Medicaid waivers, sometimes OOD provides that type of support. Our university has personal care attendants that we hire that are student employees, and if you're funded through OOD, then you can use those, but if you're funded through Medicaid, then you're going to have to go through an agency because of the rules that Medicaid has.
Perfect, that's a great point. Thank you. Kind of along similar lines, so let's say students were to be afforded accommodations, any sort of supports at the college level. Is there ever a time where it's reevaluated and determined that they're no longer eligible for those accommodations or support?
So I know at Heidelberg, I think other colleges do different time periods, but we review accommodations semesterly. So it gives us a chance to sit down and say, like, how did this work for you? Is this still working? Is this still necessary? And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes students get to the college setting and they realize that they didn't need their extended time on testing quizzes anymore because they had enough time, and so then we didn't need it after that. But then also, we use the words fundamental alteration a lot when it comes to accommodations. And so if we are looking at a specific course and some of the accommodations that you have would cause a fundamental alteration to that course, meaning that you wouldn't be able to meet the required course objectives had you used that accommodation, then that would make that not eligible for that class. I hope that I'm explaining this okay. And so, yes and no, I guess, is the answer to that question. Sometimes we can determine that you no longer need an accommodation or that it is not eligible for a specific class. And that's something that I think we all fit into our schedule, is like a yearly or semesterly review.
Perfect. So another question kind of along similar to that. So let's say that we were to apply for accommodations, and we kind of start that process. And let's say that between the university and the family, we've kind of come to a set of accommodations that you're proposing would be appropriate for accessibility. Let's say at that point there's a disagreement on whether or not you feel like that's appropriate or not. What does that step look like next, as far as if there's a disagreement among whether or not there are certain supports and services that are appropriate for accessibility to the curriculum?
In the FLY program, we coach both parents and students to come with data to support the request. So for instance, if your student used assistive technology and it was very beneficial, but based on the diagnosis provided to our Office of Accessibility Services, they didn't feel that was necessary, then our learning specialist will meet with the student and the parent if necessary, and we go back through the documentation and highlight how that diagnosis is best supported with the requested accommodation. We have not found that to be a point of contention at all on our campus. So I would suggest gathering your data ahead of time, whether it's your most recent ETR, your IEP, neuropsych evals, psychometric evals, and having that on hand because you know what's worked for your student or what might be needed coming up, and you can simply highlight those. And I think that makes it easy for the office, because I don't believe the office is out to sabotage any student. They want to provide those accommodations. They just sometimes may not see those needs the same way you see them, or as your students experienced those in the high school setting.
I think I'll add to that if there is a disagreement and you feel like you're entitled to an accommodation that was not approved, there's likely an appeal process. I know that at Hocking College there is, in which the ADA 504 coordinator would review it. You can also appeal directly to the Office of Civil Rights, and they would review it.
I think the most important thing here, the word, is process. it can be an ongoing conversation, a back and forth. So it doesn't have to be a one and done. So keep engaging with the offices. They might request more documentation, another meeting, but continue to work with the office.
Okay. All right, so kind of changing gears. So transition's really difficult. So, and with mental health, anxiety, depression, can you talk just a little bit about counseling services, anything like that that students might require?
So at Wright State and probably at most of the colleges here, we have a counseling center that students can elect to go to. If your student is still on your family insurance and you have an established provider that your young person can continue seeing during their transition to college, that might actually be really beneficial. So that way they don't have to go to a new place and a new school and a new therapist all at the same time. That's a lot of things. And with telehealth, you know, we've really kind of opened up a little bit too. So a lot of times when I'm meeting with my students, whether or not they have a mental health diagnosis, like I can usually see if maybe there's also some mental health. You know, I'll say accommodations are one piece of this, but we are not the end-all be-all magic wand. You need to continue your mental health therapy and continue taking really good care of yourself, because accommodations are not going to make it all happen.
Okay.
At Muskingum University, we do have free counselors on campus. We also, as students, have access to free telehealth counseling. And students can select whether they want in-person or telehealth counseling. But the other thing I'll add is, again, some of our universities have specialized programs to support students academically in that transition to college, which helps support their stress level, their planning, their anxiety. And by meeting with an academic coach through a program like the PLUS program, that can help to reduce some of those issues and concerns that students might have related to stress levels, anxiety, and so forth. So I would encourage you to, again, ask questions when you visit campuses about academic coaching and counseling that's available on the campus.
For students with maybe more significant medical needs, so say diabetes, things like that, let's say it were to be, you know, late at night, what are universities' response to try to help with, like, let's say there's drops in low blood sugar, you know, students unresponsive. What are universities' kind of response to that kind of stuff? Does anyone have any insight on what that might look like?
So we try to be as proactive as we can. When I have some students that we know are going to have a chronic, significant medical issue, seizure disorder, could be diabetes, I work with them to create a medical plan of how they would like that handled, and then we work to identify what offices, what people might need to be notified. So maybe if they're planning to support them, they might want AT to know, they certainly want AT to know, they might want coaches to know, people like that, res hall folks. So we try to get really deep into who needs to know, and then I make sure those offices get notified. We create this plan, and then I send it to those different offices. So we can be as respectful as we can of how they want that medical need addressed.
Okay, perfect. For students and families who are kind of in the process of determining whether or not college is appropriate for their student, what advice do you have as far as kind of guiding that conversation on whether or not, you know, attending college, 4-year, and maybe just giving a class a try, maybe trying community college first? What is your advice as far as kind of guiding that conversation with families on whether or not college is an appropriate thing kind of moving forward? Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
So aside from academics, there are some daily living kinds of things that you need to think about. As a college student, you need to get yourself out of bed in the morning. You need to take your medication when you're scheduled. You need to be able to do your own laundry. Those kinds of daily living things are important to prepare for. And if you're going to college next fall, in early August, start to get yourself up early in the morning and get to bed early at night so that you can get your body into that routine. So life skills is as important as academics, but as somebody said earlier, colleges do not modify the academic expectations. So think about, are you prepared for the requirements of a not modified course? If you've had an opportunity to take a college course or an AP course in high school, it gives you a little taste of what college is going to be like. If you have an opportunity to take a community college course in the summer, you would be encouraged to do that too, just to get a little sense of the type of work that's required at the college level.
And then if students feel like they need additional academic support and things like that, are there typically opportunities for tutoring, for kind of like reinforcing the curriculum, things like that? Okay.
So I think this will differ between the colleges. So that's a question that you would probably have to ask directly to each college, but I know at Hocking College we do offer academic support. We do have some paid ed specialists available to teach and tutor the general studies classes. For some of the technical classes, we typically hire students to provide tutoring for those. Another thing I might mention is that academic support is very important. I think a lot of times when students get approved for accommodations, they think that they're home free, that they have what they need, and that's not really the case. You really do need to utilize academic support. Because if you don't know the material, extra time on a test is not going to be much help.
So we like to say that academic support is for everyone. My office is actually housed within our Owen Center for Teaching and Learning. We offer free academic support classes. I'm sure other people have a setup similar to we do. We have a lot of student workers who are students who excel in specific subject areas that tutor, for math, for psychology, for music, for chemistry. And so you can schedule directly with those students. We also have writing consultants. And then we offer something called supplemental instruction. I think you mentioned like reinforced curriculum, which is a student who has taken a course before and they will like audit the class again. And then once or twice a week, they meet with a group of students from that course, so like our first year biology courses, our Psych 101 classes, things like that, and they do reviews, or they use study guides and things like that. And I imagine that other schools have similar setups, so there are plenty of opportunities for you to get the support that you need. You just have to look for it.
And I think along support, there was one other question, kind of specific, but someone made mention of fee-for-service type of supports. Can you talk to us a little bit and give some examples of maybe specifically what that might look like for a student?
So by fee-for-service, what I mean is students can have tutoring and academic coaching support above and beyond what the ADA requires. So when students come to college, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, is in place to ensure that all of our universities provide equal access to programs and services for students. And that's why accommodations are provided. But above and beyond that is more personalized one-on-one services in the way of academic coaching, tutoring, support with time management, study skills, test prep, writing papers, and yes, there are peer supports available on many campuses that are free, but those peers aren't necessarily trained with specific strategies that students with learning differences might need. So if you're feeling like your student or students, you receive lots of one-on-one support from an intervention specialist in the way of time management and organization and study strategies, then you might look into a fee-for-service program on a college campus. And like I said, there are several of those across the state of Ohio.
If I could speak to the FLY program at BGSU, our fee-for-base program provides students with an individualized academic program. So your student, if accepted into the program, would be assigned a learning specialist, such as myself, and we would meet every week one-on-one. And we would ask your student to open up their courses. We would make sure that they are well aware of the upcoming assignments, their due dates, the mode of delivery. We go through and help them chunk larger projects. We provide the type of support mentioned by my colleague down there that is very individual to your students' executive function needs. If it has to do with dyslexia, we're going to help connect them with assistive technology. We also provide support, in addition to the tutoring, many workshops where if students struggle with maybe developing a little bit of grit, or maybe they need some help with homesickness, or they have test anxiety, or need test-taking strategies. In our weekly meetings, we will do a mini workshop with your student, and we'll teach strategies, and we'll keep trying until they find a strategy that suits their need, because we want to make sure they have the skills they need to do well academically. So our program provides that, as well as early move-ins orientation specifically for our students. They arrive on campus before their peers, get in their dorms. We help them set up Microsoft Word with folders. We teach them how to set up rules in email. We have other people, which we call fly ambassadors, who are students within our program, come and work with students, take them around campus, walk with their schedules so you know how to navigate, and do those sorts of support activities that cannot really be supported to the other 18,000 friends they might have on campus.
Perfect. So next question, as we kind of, again, kind of start considering, we're almost through first semester already for the school year. For students who are considering college for next year, what is your advice for them and families right now as they start to prepare, as they start to get ready and things like that? What do you feel like they should do right now? And what's your advice as far as planning and those conversations moving forward?
Well, I will say, if you are not connected with Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, right now you can get connected while they're in high school, and then depending on what college they are attending, the case will just be transferred to the college to career counselor for that university or that college. So that way the plan will already be in place, and then they can also assist with kind of like that career exploration piece as far as exploring the different colleges, the majors, the programs, and then also discussing the supports that we will already be able to provide the student when they're in college. So it'll be kind of an easy transition into our program at the college to careers level. So if you do have a counselor with OOD, you can already start that conversation up about the supports from college to careers.
I would recommend that you visit several times, especially if you're looking at local schools or, Wright State's not too far. Come down a few times, but try and make sure you come when the students are there, because our campus empties out in the summer. And so if you visit during the summer, it's a very different feel from when the students are on campus. And also, if you need housing-related accommodations, please make sure that you apply for housing and make those housing-related accommodations as early as possible, because a lot of times your academic accommodations, they can be thrown into place last minute, but housing gets assigned way in advance. So if you need housing-related accommodations, make sure you hit those too.
I would suggest that if you are going to depend on assistive technology, that you get up to speed with whatever program that you depend upon, make sure that it works for you. It seems like so much of classes, even if it's an in-person class, there's still a large part of that that's going to be digital, and there's a lot of online content, so make sure that your screen reader that you use works okay, and that you're comfortable using it, that you can use a calendar on your phone, and you're comfortable scheduling, doing that sort of thing.
I guess the last thing I would add, and we've talked about it a couple times already, But as you kind of go into your senior year, this is the great time to start shifting that role around and having mom and dads take just a little step back and having the son or daughter start to be a little bit more of an advocate, talking to teachers, having some of those meetings, maybe with mom and dad present, but starting to shift that role so they can practice being an advocate when they are on campus. And the other thing is really think about how to talk about my disability and how it functionally impacts me. That's a really important piece. How does my ADHD impact me in the classroom? Because that is, we're kind of working on establishing appropriate accommodations. Helps us to know as disability service providers what might work best for you. So how does it functionally impact you? And we can look at some accommodations to build around that.
And I think something that I would add to that conversation too, just from my experience with families, is when your son or daughter has their IEP meeting, their 504 accommodation plan meeting, and you're working through the document, make sure your child is an active participant in that conversation. It's really important for your child to understand who they are as a learner and what that impact is for them. It's not always helpful for the adults in the room to always make the decisions for the student. We can kind of help guide that, but at the end of the day, if your student does not know the disability that they have, the learning difference that they have, what they need and why, it's going to be sometimes really hard to kind of make that connection later on, because again, as we build their advocacy skills moving forward, they really do need to have a good understanding of who they are. And it's okay to talk about disability, it's okay to talk about difference and things like that. It's a part of us, and it doesn't necessarily have to define us, but it needs to be a conversation that's had with your students, so that way they're aware. So that's just kind of something that I've seen a lot in my meetings with families. Sometimes we like to keep the student almost not necessarily an active role or an active part of it. I really think, and I would encourage and challenge you as a parent to really have your students speak up during those meetings on what they think is kind of going on. What do they think that they're struggling with? What do they think are really great strengths and skills that they're really proud of? I think those are really great pieces of information that your students should start contributing to their IEP and 504 accommodation plan meetings. So wrapping up, is there any final advice, thoughts that you all have as far as this process goes moving forward? Any other thing that you think would be important for families, students to know that we haven't addressed today? Any other final kind of closing thoughts, remarks? Okay, perfect.
I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for participating. Thank you so much, Denton, for being the moderator. Really just appreciate everyone being here tonight and participating and asking such great questions. We're going to conclude this part of it, but we do have all the colleges set up, not more than just the panelists, in the comments, so feel free to go and navigate. I also have a Spanish interpreter down here in front, so if you need any extra assistance, she'll be sitting right down here. So thank you again for coming. Have a great night. Tomorrow I will send out the booklet link and the YouTube link so you can access this. Thank you. Take care.